We had a Prop 21. This one's on local rent control. And the way that I understand it currently is that there was a bill passed in 1995, which is the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act, which allows homeowners to sort of, um, what is it? Wait, hold on, sorry. Yeah, oh yeah, sorry here. Yeah. It says allow local government to use rent control except on housing that was first occupied after 95 and housing units with distinct titles such as a condo, townhouses, or single family home. Okay, and then something that helps me sort of understand what we have currently, like under Costa-Hawkins, landlords are allowed to increase rent prices to market rate when a tenant moves out. And so this ballot measure would require that local government that adopt rent control to allow landlords to only increase rental rates by 50% during the first 3 years following a vacancy. Um, and so uh, with this new prop, it basically, yeah, so if you have a property that's 15 years old, well, this only applies to properties that are older than 15 years, sorry. And then and it allows local limits to annual rent control increases to differ from current statewide limits. And it allows rent controls and rent control properties to go up 15% over 3 years at the start of new tenancy, like I mentioned earlier. This exempts people who own no more than two homes from a new rent control policy from rent control policies. And then in accordance with California law, prohibits rent control from violating landlord's right to fair financial return. Fiscal impact. So with the prices of the homes going or these rental units going down, it would potentially lead to less homeless individuals, which means taxpayers need less money less taxpayers need to pay. Sorry, I'm trying to make sense of that on my own first. Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna move on. Individuals spend less on rent means more spending in their communities. Landlords making less off rent, and then values of housing going down artificially. Uh, I'm not sure what ROI stands for. And I would give it
Return
to,
on investment.
oh, return on investment. Thank you. And I'll leave it to someone else to go with the next couple slides.
Okay, so voting yes would mean you support that more government rent control or government like has more power over rent control where you live if you do own two or more houses. If you vote no, then let's see, it would still prohibit rent control on housing that was occupied after February 1st, 1995, with distinct titles like a single family home. Next, please. The first argument in favor for this is taxpayer cost reduction. So, rent control units would save people from homelessness. If they are put on the streets, it saves the taxpayer money because it costs taxpayers an average of 35 to 45K annually per homeless individual. Uh, Next, I don't really know how that happens or works really, but next. Guarantees profit because landlords will always have a maybe hard to come up. What? Landlords are guaranteed profit
The idea
and
of guaranteed profits comes from this idea that if the units are cheaper, there's more likely that someone will be able to move in. So it guarantees that someone will be able to be in the unit rather than have it be vacant.
yeah, that was just a weird sentence for me when I was reading it. Anyways, next please. Keeps families in their home. I think that's sort of self-explanatory. You won't kick a kid out of a home when they're going to school. Won't give them any stress as they try to get their education. Or yeah, I don't know if you guys need more explaining for that one.
Am I doing it again?
If anyone else wants to go in a group.
Should I do it again? Okay, I'll do it again. Argument against Prop 21. Prop 21 provides no real action plan on how to attack the problem on overall housing shortages. It pushes the responsibility somewhere else. Do I have to elaborate? Okay. I'll elaborate later. Next slide, please. Wait, where's argument two? It forces landlords to follow regulations set by unelected boards, reduces profit available to the landlords. reduces autonomy of landlords over their own properties, and it doesn't allow for homeowners to match market prices even after the tenants move out. It places a naturally restrict regulation on landlords. Next slide. By artificially keeping the value of the house low, contractor will have reduced incentives to construct new housings in the area of needed. This will lead to the devaluation of these
municipalities.
Yes, that one. Yeah, I did it. Thanks, Carvel.
So, discussion?
Anyone have any questions about what it does?
I want to clarify, ask a clarifying question. So people who have only 2 houses, they are allowed to set whatever rent. But if they have 3 houses, then that third house needs, if this proposition passes, then that third house would fall under this. You can't increase more than 15% per year for the first 3 years.
Based on the local government kind of thing. Yeah. So if you live in San Francisco, the local government of San Francisco would have their own, like, they can basically make their own law. And then if you live in San Jose, they make their own laws again. But the whole act is basically in California is that, like, anyone that, or any company that owns 3 houses or more will be under this Affordability Act, but people that has 1 or 2 houses does not have to follow this act. So it basically is trying to aim at the corporations kind of thing, like, or big, like, you know, companies that own a lot of houses, that sells those houses, retailers and stuff like that. Or it's trying to aim at those people.
Okay, so if the city laws have a stricter rent control law, then that person would have to follow the city's law. But if there's less, if the city has no rent control, for example, then they would still have to follow California state law.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
This prop only gives the powers to city governments whether they want to do it or not.
Yeah.
It's not like a California thing.
Okay. So the city would still have to confirm this.
Yeah, they dictate whether they want rent control or not in their cities.
Okay, got it.
That's good, right? Because then it's like tailored to the local market, the local housing market. Because I think like the San Francisco housing rental market is very different from even just like neighboring cities. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing to put more power in the hands of like local officials to have something tailor-made to their constituents.
There's a line of reasoning that says that rent control ultimately reduces new housing because developers and builders, they don't want to build in places where their returns are limited, so they just will choose to go to the next market. And so they say ultimately in the long run, communities that have rent control actually lose out on new housing. And well, what results is just you just have a bunch of rent controlled property. And so it's good for the people that are in rent controlled units, but it's not good for people that maybe try to come into the city or some other stuff. What do people think about that?
I understand that argument. My issue with that argument is like the current system, there is no rent control, and yet there's no big influx of new affordable housing units that is being provided by the free market. I feel like developers are not going to be incentivized to produce housing that is affordable to your average American in any situation. They have to be prodded to do so because our housing market has gone out of control. Like the cost of housing is so inflated that they're only going to go after people with like deep pockets. They're only going to make luxury condominiums for the rich people. And so, I mean, I don't think rent control can really do much more to dissuade that, you know?
So it's like better to just have it while we somehow
Yeah.
fix the bigger problem of trying to get people to build more houses.
Yeah. I mean, that's my argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
An update on it is that in 2019, California state legislature passed a legislation titled AB 1482 that basically caps the annual rent increase at 5% plus inflation for tenants. So basically, we already have like another rent control law that was passed about like a year ago. And now I guess like because of the whole COVID thing, everyone's paying more attention on like this ballot. And now it's like everyone's kind of scared of like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to pay rent because of this whole pandemic. And because they have another one that was they have another act that was kind of similar back in 2018. Yes, 2018. And they rejected that one. Now is
Yeah. Well, I think like the one in 2018 was like it would repeal Costa-Hawkins completely. This one sort of makes it so it only repeals it on older properties.
Yeah.
So if you're a developer and you build a new property now today, and this ballot measure gets put into place, then you still have a 15 years of golden time where you can charge whatever you can get away with in the free market. Also, there's that 5% cap on increases, but it's like, yeah, I don't know, man, it's crazy.
Wait, so just to clarify, if you own two homes, does this apply to you?
Yeah, two or more looks like it includes two. No more than two. Sorry. That's what that link I put in the chat.
Yeah.
The ballot measure would allow local governments to adopt rent control on housing units, except on units owned by natural persons who own no more than two housing units with separate titles. So if you're just a regular person and not a corporation, I think that's what is meant by natural persons, and you only own two homes, then this does not apply to you, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna vote for it.
Yeah.
It's just me. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I didn't know that the 2019 one has a rent control across the whole state. I think that's a good thing. It'll kind of equalize the markets, even though I'm sure developers are still going to be picky. Like even if the other county over has like 1 percentage point better on the potential returns, they'll probably still go over there. But at least the playing field is a little more even across the whole state. But yeah, it kind of sucks. The problem still stands. In my opinion, I think rent control is kind of like a good band-aid to have, right? It protects families and stuff in the meantime, but you can never escape supply and demand for housing here. Is anyone feeling a no against this proposition?
I mean, I'm probably a no on this proposition.
Yeah, tell us why.
I mean, I agree rent control is good to an extent for renters and families trying to, live somewhere, especially where they want. But it hurts the owners a lot, even though one of the slides said it's a, theoretical guaranteed income. But that income isn't like, it might not be enough for the owner to pay for mortgages or whatever if they're renting out to someone, because it's capped to, let's say $2,000, $3,000, and they mortgage a house for well over that amount they have to pay each month, and that's like one of the main points of getting a rent, to help pay the mortgage you have. So I think it hurts the homeowner too much if they were to be like renting out a lot of places, even if they should be rich and they should have money lined up in their pockets to pay it all off. Still, it's very counterintuitive to be an owner at this point in time if you're under rent control, or strict rent control, I should say. So yeah, that's my line of reasoning.
Does anybody have that detail where it's apparently it's established California law that the concept of a fair return on your investment. I don't know exactly how much it says that it gives you, but I'm wondering if that amount was large enough if James would be at all.
California.
Wouldn't that amount depend on the place, or do you mean like it's a percentage of a fixed amount based off the rent you have? Because mortgages aren't all the same.
Yeah, let me try to find this. I'm just curious, what would be like a minimum fair return for you, James? Like a percentage of, or at least if it at least covers your mortgage?
I mean, it should at least for the one renter, maybe 75%, 80%. I think it's a high number, of course, but I think that's reasonable. Paying 20% of your own pocket still to mortgage that, to help finish the mortgage off a home like that, when you still have to live somewhere else to pay that mortgage off if you have one. That's a lot of money that adds up still.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, there's established court cases about the exact question, and obviously I don't really have time to dive into it, but I'm curious what that number is really, and whether people think it's fair or not. But yeah, I saw that, but that's just a table of contents. It doesn't really say anything. Well,
yeah, I mean, asking a homeowner would be better than being like thinking this, where what they think, because they have more experience probably, and more like reasonable returns since they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, generally,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't think I can't think of any markets where the rental amount is lower than the mortgage, especially with the rates being so low as they are right now.
And I also wanted to point out that I think William mentioned earlier that this is kind of like for a COVID situation. And I know right now in my building, the manager is trying to keep people from moving. And so I feel like this would be a good thing to have, just in case of that, like they can ensure that they're still gaining money, but also not losing out on money when people move out because of rent being too high.
This should be separate from COVID, because the COVID ones have a established thing they set up for quarantine measures. They can't evict them, period, if they're agreeing to pay off at least 25% per month, or they have an established payment plan with their landlord. So they shouldn't be getting evicted unless they're refusing to pay anything without further notice of why they can't pay it, is what I've been reading up on.
I mean, I think this is more for like a post-COVID economy, not like right now, in a sense.
Yeah, I think it's for a post-COVID economy, or one pre-COVID when like rental prices were really sky high, and they are still pretty high, even though they're falling because a lot of people are moving out of the city. But I think when it comes to dealing with any sort of crisis, like I think local governments should have every tool in their tool belt to be able to deal with that crisis, right? And Costa-Hawkins right now prevents local governments from, using one of these tools to address this issue. And if this tool doesn't work, well, we don't quite know, because we're not allowed to do it. So plus it's like, if one city or if one municipality implements rent control in a certain way and that works, then maybe it could spread to other municipalities. And if it doesn't work another way, then that could not you know, it's just like the sort of spirit of experimentation is cool, I think, is nice and to be lauded. And I think Costa Hawkins, ever since it was put in place, has sort of like just sort of like prevented that spirit of innovation, policy innovation, because it's just like, hey man.
I agree with your thought process, William, because it is good to have like methods of experimenting to see what would fit for like this community versus another city. But and then if this isn't available for people, like there is no way to like experiment. There is no way to kind of like find another option to figure out like what's going on with rent, because I think Steven mentioned it's a good band-aid to put on. But and so it's like temporary, we have this active, and then it allows the government to kind of have time to figure out a more long-term type of fix.
Yeah, you know what'll make it even more complicated is that, you know, most of the new buildings in the city, they have to apportion a certain amount of units to be affordable. And so that, you know, that's a whole other calculation, where you said they're not even, you know, they're brand new buildings, so they don't fall under the rent control in the state's sense of the term. But there's a whole nother calculation where, you know, there's a lottery to get the affordable housing unit. And then, you know, those rents and stuff like that are regulated internally. And if you know, you don't even really want to raise in your income because you might lose that unit and stuff like that. So I mean, all that's to say, there's a lot going on with housing. So the specific question is, should we expand rent control in localities? And well, it's nice that it's pretty specific. It's hard to keep it in perspective with all the other moving parts as far as housing goes, without doing you know, more diving even deeper into it. Does anyone have any thoughts here before we move on to the next proposition?
I have a website, not a thought, but I've been using this website since like we started this whole spread event thing, and I found it like pretty useful. It shows the full text of the ballot, and the summary, who supports it, who's against it, how much people that support it spend on like advertising it, and how much people um, who are against it, who's the donor, and like over here also shows like histories and backgrounds, like Prop 10 and Hawkins Rental Housing Act, AB 1482. It also show like state's policy on rent control. It seemed like most of the United States doesn't have rent control, you know, so it is something like, you know, good to read, I guess. And yeah, that's it.
Sweet. Thanks. Okay, well, we are running out of time, so we are moving on to the next thing is Proposition F for San Francisco.